The sharpest part of Dong's address came when he turned to the subject of maritime disputes, an issue at the core of rising tensions in Asia. With the South China Sea dispute simmering, Beijing used the forum to reassert its long-standing position. Dong Jun declared, "The so-called freedom of navigation advocated by certain countries outside the region and the so-called international arbitration advocated by certain claimants blatantly challenge the fundamental norms of international relations. China's safeguarding of its territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests in accordance with the law is a firm defence of the post-war order and international rule of law." This remark was unmistakably aimed at the United States and its allies, who regularly conduct freedom of navigation operations in disputed waters, as well as at Southeast Asian countries like the Philippines, which have sought arbitration rulings against China's sweeping maritime claims. By framing its territorial defence as a protection of the post-war order, Beijing sought to flip the narrative. Where Washington argues that China is undermining international law, Dong presented China's actions as the very opposite, a legitimate defence of sovereignty and global legal norms. The Xiangshan Forum has become a symbolic stage where China pushes back against US-led narratives. This year's edition, featuring high-level delegates from Russia, ASEAN and Myanmar, reinforced the impression of a multipolar front coalescing against what they perceive as Western dominance. Russian Deputy Defence Minister Anna Tsivilyova's presence was particularly notable. Her handshake with delegates and her speech underscored Moscow's alignment with Beijing, especially as both countries face growing Western sanctions and criticism. Meanwhile, ASEAN's Secretary-General and Myanmar's Defence Minister highlighted Southeast Asia's central role in the evolving security dynamic. For many attendees, the forum was less about solutions and more about signalling alignments and opposition. Dong Jun's remarks crystallized Beijing's foreign policy narrative that China seeks peace but is being provoked by external powers. The speech also revealed how Beijing continues to frame legal and diplomatic disputes as illegitimate tools wielded by outsiders to contain its rise. Critics, however, argue that such rhetoric obscures China's own assertiveness. By rejecting arbitration and dismissing freedom of navigation as a pretext, Beijing positions itself against widely recognized interpretations of international maritime law. Yet for the Chinese audience and its partners in attendance, Dong's words were a rallying cry. They reinforced China's stance that it is both a defender of global order and a target of unwarranted pressure.